What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Jeff Guy here, and in today's video, we're going over my top trade tips for Madden 22, hoping to help you guys get better players on your rosters, pay less for them, and hopefully dump some of the guys that you don't want on other teams. Make sure to follow, comment, like, do all the things. Helps me bring more content to you guys. That being said, let's get into it. I want to give a huge shout out to AV Swaps, a friend of mine over on Twitter. He works with PFF to do amazing jersey swaps like this one for Deebo Samuel that we used on today's thumbnail. Make sure you go check him out and follow. I'll drop a link to his Twitter in the description of this video. He does awesome work and actually does some freelance stuff. Make sure you go DM him if you want something. Tell him I sent you. And yeah, thanks a lot, AV. Cool, so we're loaded into a random CFM. I actually downloaded an updated roster with the new draft class. As you can see, Tyquan Thornton and Cole Strange are both here for the Patriots. Tyquan Thornton, I think in this has like 97 speed, so he's an absolute must for our team. Now going into the trade center, you can see these team needs, right? There's 5 listed for each team. The top one for the Patriots is apparently quarterback, even though Mac Jones, who's a rookie, now a second-year player, who's young, has a decent salary on his rookie deal, star development, is a very solid option for us. And Madden is telling us that apparently that's our number one need. Which brings me to my whole point about this tip, is that 1, you need to value your team needs differently than Madden does. If you have like a 92 speed right outside linebacker who's only like a 67 overall, you're probably going to play him a lot because he's super fast. Madden's not going to see it that way and give you right outside linebacker as a top team need. You need to fight that and say, no, I do not need a right outside linebacker, and I'm not going to go spend capital to go get one. But Madden CPU logic doesn't see it the same way. Their valuation is like 85% overall, like 10% development, then like a little bit of age, contract, and like overall skill making up the full 100% of how they view each player. Now, obviously, you guys know about some of the low overall players that are super impactful, mainly the guys who are really fast, guys like Anthony Schwartz, Javelin Guidry. We're going to trade for them against the CPU because the CPU doesn't value them for who they are. So, for example, here we have Anthony Schwartz. He's a 20 overall rookie, 96 speed, 94 acceleration, an absolute must-get for any budget franchise. And we're just going to take a look at our wide receivers, right? The only one we really like in Madden is Tyquan Thornton right now. So we can use this to dump a bad player on them. Let's do Nelson Agholor. I can't stand that he's on the Patriots. They'll obviously accept this deal, and it's super great for us because we're getting a low salary, high impact player, and we're getting rid of a mid impact, high salary player. The best way to take advantage of team needs is to trade players that you don't want to teams that need that position. The way to take advantage of the logic of team needs is to trade players that you do not want to teams who need that position. For example, Jalen Mills is getting paid $4.56 million a year and will not play for my Madden team because he just does not fit what I'm looking for. The Bucs don't want him. Let's see if we can get a second-round pick from them for Jalen Mills. They do not want him. The trade bar gets to like right past the V. So we're going to take a look at that and see what happens when we go to the Cardinals, who have a very high interest in him. We're going to ask for the same thing, their second-round pick. And bam, that trade's accepted. So make sure when you're dumping players, you're trading them to the right teams and not just trying to offload a bunch of contracts. Now, the second tip is actually new for Madden 22, and that's using your franchise skill trees to increase the value of your players. The player personnel trades skill tree actually increases the value of your players and decreases the value of other teams' players when making trades. There's a ton of different upgrades on this skill tree, so as you acquire staff points throughout the year in your franchise, make sure you're using them on this skill tree to make trades easier for yourself. So when we just traded Jalen Mills, we actually could have used 2 of these upgrades. One is called Quite the Sales Pitch, which actually increases how much the team values that player based on their dev trait. And then the Grass is Greener also increases the value of your players by 2 to 4%, which is significant. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it might be the difference between you getting a second-round pick or a first-round pick for that individual player. The next tip I want to go over is positional value. Certain positions are valued higher in Madden than others, which makes sense. Quarterbacks mean much more to your team than your punter. So when you trade, you got to make sure that you're being mindful of the positions you're getting versus the positions you're giving up. Especially when it comes to online CFMs, don't be giving up your best players for guys at high overalls at non-impact positions. I've seen too many guys go for like Trent Brown on the Patriots and giving up really, really good receivers. It's just not worth it in the long run. Make sure you keep your high impact players and take high impact players from your other teams. Now, to demonstrate some positional value, I'm going to trade Mac Jones straight up for Justin Fields. Obviously, this isn't going to go through because of the way Madden values positions, and logically, the Bears aren't going to trade their 10th overall pick quarterback for the 15th overall pick quarterback. But it shows us that in Madden, that gets us to like a yellow trade offer that's like right in the middle of the H in what. So when we ask for a higher impact player, higher overall, but at a less important position, we're probably going to be able to make this happen. Let's ask for Jalen Johnson, who's an 86 overall corner. And that trade's accepted. So instead of getting a 75 overall player, we're actually getting an 86 overall player who's young and able to impact. However, Madden says that the quarterback is so much more valuable that an 86 overall player can be straight up traded for a 78 overall player. The next thing we need to go over is how a player's position on their depth chart impacts their trade value. Players who are lower on the depth chart are easier to trade for than people high on depth charts. So let's show this off in the game. So let's try to get Brandon Aiyuk, who's a young, good receiver, for a 6th round pick. That's not going to be accepted, and the trade interest level gets to about the end of the W in weed. And obviously, we wouldn't do this in a real franchise, but I just want to show the difference in value once he gets moved down the depth chart. So we're going to trade Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker over and bump Brandon Aiyuk down on the depth chart. So obviously Brandon Aiyuk is a super valuable player in Madden, and a 6th round pick isn't going to make this trade happen. But what we're trying to show is the change that the depth chart ranking makes for him. He's not the 2nd overall receiver. He's actually now 4th on the depth chart. Let's see how it changes the trade, right? So previously we were at the W in weed, and now we're just right in front of the D. So there was actually a noticeable jump based on the trade offer. So when you're trying to trade with the CPU and you see Darius Slayton, Kadarius Toney, guys that you might want to go after, it's going to be easier to trade for them because they're lower on the depth chart. Finally, a word of caution about trading for players, specifically in regards to their salaries and their contracts. When you're deciding between players to trade for, there's so much more that goes into each option beyond what's on the field. You need to look at the salaries as well. For example, let's take a look at Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin from the Washington football team, now the Commanders. Terry McLaurin, let's do his pros first. He's younger, he's a better overall, and he's making much less money during his contract. He's only making like $1 million a year. Versus Curtis Samuel, who is older, worse, he's still fine, and he's got a $10 million a year salary. Now, the negatives to signing McLaurin are that you have fewer years of control than Curtis Samuel. He has 2 years remaining on his deal. Samuel has 3. McLaurin's also going to need to be re-signed during this period, right? So McLaurin, when he's done with his rookie contract, he's a 92 overall, has superstar abilities. He's going to want the bag. And while it's fine to have him for 2 years, if you're going to make an investment in him, you're probably going to want to sign him to a deal, and that deal is going to be big. And if at some point you decide to trade or cut Terry McLaurin, I don't know why you'd ever cut him, but you're going to have to eat a cap penalty if you sign him to that deal. And that cap penalty, based on how big the deal is going to be significant. Now, the benefit of signing someone on a longer deal like Curtis Samuel or even Dyami Brown is that you are going to take on the salary, and that's going to affect your cap. But if you release or trade that player who's already on a deal, you're not going to get a cap penalty, which is great. There's a huge difference between his money counting against your cap and you getting a cap penalty when you release or trade the player. Make sure you follow, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Really helps me bring more content to you guys. I hope you like this one. Let me know what you liked, you didn't like about the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.